So 11,000 people agreed with this video that overlanding is a scam. Now I watched it, and then all these videos started popping up also saying overlanding is a scam, overlanding's fake, all this kind of stuff. I am not an overlander. I'm nearly 25 years as a off-roader. I wheel stock Jeeps like that. I also run this channel where we make trail guides. We do not do gear reviews, nor do we rely on sponsors to run this channel. There's definitely some good points in those videos.
You don't need a built rig to just be outside here.
However, there is a massive problem. Overlanding, or whatever you want to call it, is one of the absolute best ways to get outdoors and see some of the most incredible sights the United States has to offer. So in this video, we're going to discuss what is overlanding, does the USA actually have it, what gear do you need to go off-road, what gear do you need to go overlanding,
on why I'm skeptical as to whether or not overlanding really exists in the United States. We just have such short and perfectly well-maintained Forest Service roads. That's the fact.
People are going to argue about overlanding, the definition of overlanding, nonstop on social media. I have been filming off-road camping guides this summer, and I'm going to call them overland guides because that's exactly what they are in terms of my definition. And my definition is multi-day off-road camping, self-sufficient, A to B. You're going from A to B. In some cases, we're going A to B to C to D, that kind of stuff. But you're on a journey. Now, if you set up a base camp and go do off-road trails, you're off-roading. If you're on pavement or doing dirt roads, a lot of that, you're more likely car camping. And honestly, I think some of the videos I was watching, it seems like you guys are more familiar with that, and that's maybe why you don't think overlanding exists in the United States. Trust me, it does. It's not just Colorado, it's not just Utah. Arizona had it. Everywhere I look, when I go study and look for routes that I want to do, I find routes that can be multi-day off-road travel. And it's not that they're red trails, they're yellow trails. You know, there's some greens in there, that's okay. There might be some pavement in there, that's okay. Some of the hardest places to do that here in the United States is the eastern side of the United States, but it's still possible. If you guys have watched Flex, Rocks, and Rollover, they just did an incredible overland trip in one of their most recent series that just came out. I'll probably link it in the description. It was very good. It was long videos, but they were off-roading, they were wet, they had a lot of fun. That was on the East Coast. That shows you can do it. I know you can do it out west, that's what we're doing, but you can do it on the east too. So when you say the United States doesn't have overlanding,
I'm skeptical as to whether or not overlanding really exists in the United States.
It definitely does, and it's some of the best overlanding in the world because you get to throw your vehicle into 4-low, you get to figure it out. You might have to use your lockers. That's the best. That is off-road camping. That the best way to summarize off-road camping is overlanding.
I'm here to tell you, you don't need any of that to actually overland. But the overlanding industrial complex would have you believing otherwise.
Now, this channel does not push gear to get you out here to see these amazing places. You do not need a ton of gear to be an overlander. So that in those videos is where I do agree with them in some ways. However, you do need some gear to get out here because you got to satisfy the off-road component of off-road camping. So you're going to need a vehicle that is capable of getting you places that a two-wheel drive will not get you. And so, yes, we're going to discuss what do you need to get to places like this. Now, this right here might actually be the most important component of your four-wheel drive build, and that is tires. Many vehicles come with very weak off-road tires from the factory, and you may want to upgrade and have better tires. Tires will magnify the performance of your vehicle better than any modification out there. In fact, that was the first thing I did to the Jeep Liberty to get it on trails like Hurricane Creek and Horse Creek. Now, this channel was built on me wheeling a stock Rubicon. However, a stock Rubicon is actually a very capable vehicle. Now, Before the Rubicon came out, this is a first generation Rubicon, Jeeps did not always have lockers, did not always have all this body armor on it. It was kind of a revolutionary thing to offer a factory Jeep with the off-road components necessary to go do trails like the Rubicon Trail. That's why it got its name. It was able to do the Rubicon Trail stock in this configuration. However, if you're looking to build your vehicle, even if it's not a Jeep Rubicon, you should maybe look at the Rubicon, because the Rubicon has all the necessary components for off-road capability. You are going to hit stuff when you are off-road, and that's what Jeep did with this. This is the factory armor. They put this, steel guard on this side, because this is a rocker guard right here. So if you hit a rock, which I have, they're actually quite impressive, it helps protect your body from damage. Underneath, there are skid plates. Skid plates help protect the vital components of your drivetrain from damage, especially if you have a vehicle with less ground clearance. This Jeep does have 10.2 inches of ground clearance, but many trails nowadays do require a little bit more. The main thing, I think, is you want a four-wheel drive system with a low range. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some very capable all-wheel drives out there that can go many places, but my experience is with these part-time systems. My Liberty also has a system similar to these Rubicons, so it's something I know very well. Now, what you don't need that my Jeeps do, except for the Liberty, is lockers. I absolutely love lockers, and in older vehicles, they are extremely useful. I will be putting in a rear locker into my Jeep Liberty, but for the most part, newer vehicles with modern off-road traction systems like A-Track and Jeep's brake lock differential do not need lockers for even some of the more difficult trails. Now, when you are getting on extremely difficult obstacles, you're going to want those lockers, but for many people, they don't always want to do that. Now, this isn't a necessary modification, but I do believe in having good headlights and good lighting out there on the trails. This is mostly important if you plan on doing night wheeling, which is one of my favorite things. Now, I was going for a stock look with this restoration of the TJ, so I put Holley retro brights in it. However, I am noticing I am going to need a lot more light for this Jeep to do some significant night wheeling. Now, one of the most important things that you need to bring out there with you when you are going off-road is a recovery kit. We won't spend a lot of time talking about your recovery kit. There's plenty of videos on YouTube about what to have in your recovery kit. However, I always bring a recovery kit with me when I go off-road. Now, finally, if you're going to be going off-roading in a group, and especially if you are new to off-roading, I recommend this, but you're going to want to have some way to communicate with that group that's out there with you. You need to find out before you get out there what kind of communication system they use. On our group rides and on our overland trips and all that, we are using GMRS. They're not getting far enough from civilization if they don't think the US has overlanding, because we do. This isn't it. I am not overlanding right now. I have cell phone reception. I'm on call. I am close to civilization. I could get a pizza delivered to me here, but in reality, when I am filming those guides, most of them were pretty far away from anything that resembles help.
Why does it look like that? And the answer is it's just for looks. It's pretentious, fake, phony, posery nonsense.
Well, all right then. That's definitely saying it. Now that right there is my Overlander. It's as plain as that GX is. It's quite boring. Now, I am not a gear person, as I have told you guys, but you absolutely need gear to do this. Multi-day off-road camping requires some gear. That's just how it is. Let's get right into it. Now, first things, you're gonna need shelter. It doesn't matter, you don't need a rooftop tent, but people do like rooftop tents, and I did produce a video on this going through the pros and cons of ground tents versus rooftop tents. For some people, rooftop tents make a lot of sense. For other people like me, ground tents make a lot of sense. I absolutely love my $100 ground tent, and probably showing you pictures of me camping in it because it allows me to get some amazing camp spots, and I can't wait to see where else I can take it. But there's a whole bunch of different ways, but you gotta have shelter when you're doing a multi-day trip, so you're gonna need some kind of tent. Now, I've been showing a clip of me getting high centered on Old Tin Cup. That clip is relevant because the night prior to that, I did not sleep very well. I slept, in fact, horribly. I was on an air mattress at the time. It just didn't work very well. I maybe got 2 to 3 hours of sleep. So that is our next point of gear that you need to consider. A fantastic sleep system. I now sleep on a cot with a full-size pillow and a hefty sleeping bag. I sleep absolutely fantastic. That's what works for me. It may not work for you. You just got to figure out what is the thing that matters to you, what allows you to get great sleep when you're camping, because you need good sleep, because without sleep, you're going to make some bad decisions like I did on Tin Cup. Now, self-sufficient multi-day camping requires that you're going to have to cook for yourself when you're out there going and doing your overland trip. So yes, cooking is a big part of the overland experience. Now, we will not be overdoing it in our videos about the cooking, but I do want to show you how we cooked our meals and the places that we got to eat in, because those are places that I want you to be able to eat in if that seems like something you want to do. Now, I use a simple jet boil system, and I'm learning to try to cook on a skillet with that so that I can cook burgers and steaks. Now, people in my videos have all kinds of other kinds of camping setups, some that are really fancy, and that's just the way they wanted to do it. There is nothing wrong with having a fancy setup for cooking if that is what you enjoy about the overland experience. So don't let anyone shame you for getting that stuff. Now, be reasonable. You don't need all that stuff, but if you want to spend your hard-earned money on some good camping stuff, definitely do it, and invite me, because I would love to eat from that amazing cooking setup you have. This last piece of essential gear might be a little controversial, but get yourself a budget fridge. Now, I played around with those really expensive coolers. It's just not worth it, guys. You can get a budget fridge for about the cost of a really nice cooler, and you're gonna love that budget fridge so much more. In fact, I use my budget fridge as a secondary fridge in my apartment when I am not off-roading or overlanding. I do want to have one in the Jeep though 24/7, so I need to figure out a system to do that. That is something you need to consider with budget fridges, is that you do need a power supply for it. Luckily, my JL can handle it on overland trips, but if I'm gonna leave it in 24/7, I don't think I want to trust my auxiliary battery for that purpose. So
most of the places in America, when you are getting to the trail, right before the trail, within 10 miles or so, there's going to be a gas station. You can top off right before you head into the mountains.
now let's move on to gear that you may or may not need. The first thing I found out that I need is extra fuel. This was found out on our first Overland Guide filming session, which was a long distance trip out of Moab that's not white rim, not rim rocker, and I needed extra fuel. So what I ended up doing is getting a trail rack system. A trail rack system lets me carry 8 gallons of fuel on the outside of the vehicle. I'm not doing this for show. I'm doing this because I don't want to be carrying fuel inside my Jeep. Not only does it take up space, but even the best containers still cause a smell. So yes, I run a Phony fuel carrying system, but I have actually needed it. So yeah, if you need to carry extra fuel, definitely get something that allows you to carry it on the outside. Now, an awning might be the most essential piece of non-essential overland gear. And on our first San Juan Overland Guide, we found this out firsthand as it rained and rained. But thankfully, Richard had awnings all around his JT Gladiator, and we were able to hang out under there and have a fantastic time. Now, I'm not a big fan of awnings that hang off the side of the vehicle. I just find that I get too close to trees sometimes that I really don't want to have that. I have one on the camper, so I know a little bit about using that. So this year, I'm going to be trying out a portable awning. I haven't used it yet, but I have high hopes that that will be something really awesome on these guides. But awnings are definitely something you need to consider in your overland gear. Now, the last piece of non-essential overland gear might be a build. With that said, I am going to be building this JL. Now, for those of you that like the stock component of this channel, don't worry, the TJ is going to be my stock off-roader. Plus, that TJ gives me better feedback on trails if you need lockers or if you don't. But this JL does struggle on level 7 trails, and I'd like to do some level 7 trails, maybe some level 8s. So it needs a build. And what I'm thinking is 35s, a lift so I can keep the articulation well, upgraded armor because that's still not a big build, and maybe a snorkel because I like water crossings. There's a lot more that will go into that, but that's just the gist of what I'm thinking right now for this JL. But if you want to build your vehicle for more aggressive, challenging trails, go ahead. Don't worry about what people think. That's quite all right. I think it's going to look pretty good, and it'll be able to do all kinds of trails that I can bring to you guys and give you better feedback on stuff that it can't do right now.
But you're going to have to push through your slider. The pivot didn't go well, man.
So I wanted to give a different perspective to these overlanding is a scam videos. I am not an overlander. I'm still an off-roader. I'll ride that to the end, but I have to admit I've been having so much fun filming these overland guides. They've been incredibly challenging, incredibly rewarding to see like the different vehicles get through the trails, as well as see the different people's setups. I can't wait to show you guys. I mean, the problem is I'm a full-time railroader and it makes editing really hard, but they will all be coming to this channel. So hit that subscribe button if you want to see our overland guides. But if you want to see what kind of stuff we've put out so far, that's one of our off-road guides. It's a trail guide. But thank you guys so much for watching. Don't get fired up or worried about what other people think about this. Do your thing, have fun out there.
Overlanding doesn't stand on its own necessarily. Car camping for the sake of car camping, that's really what overlanding is. Doesn't it feel like there could be more to this hobby?